Whether it is a low float gamma type squeeze or a traditional old short squeeze. We've had a ton of questions this week on squeeze stocks specifically. We're going to tell you in this video how to not only navigate them safely, but also some opportunity awaits. Guys, it all kicked off with this. HKD started things off going 14,000% from its IPO price, topping out above $2,500 on the back of AMTD Idea Group, who, while we're here, why don't we look at this, which is a list of all of the companies that AMTD has brought to market going back to 2018 and the resulting gains, or not so much, that followed. So this is not their first attempt at this, but they were successful finally in getting one of these low float stocks to put in a monstrous move, guys. How on earth do we trade these safely?
So the first things first, everyone wants these to turn into an HKD or turn into a GameStop or turn into an AMC. And from what I've been able to see, for most of them, they go really crazy or have those incredible gains like HKD is. You have a bit of a pattern. I'm going to show you a 15-minute chart. I'm going to kind of zoom away so that you can't see the present. But if you go back at the beginning of this, and this is in, two to 3 weeks ago on HKD, it comes out at about 13. And we have seen this before where you have a very low float issue that catches a bid, the float gets soaked up, and there's really not enough available shares for any naked shorts to be able to cover, and you get a bit of a rally. And I say a bit, it goes up 250% from that price. But what happens next is it falls back in just one day. And this is where it always gets interesting, because when you have something that does this, that capitulates and doesn't head lower, it's like on the one day, if it doesn't break the low, there's only one place for it to go. It should be dead. There's nothing fundamental why it went up in the first place, but it doesn't. It hangs around, finds support at that issue price, and then makes a higher low. And this is where the second breakout, when it happens, they're usually pretty magical. You'd think a stock that goes 13 in a few days to 30, back into 14, it should be dead. But no, when you make that secondary break, and it was about 32, 33, then things got crazy. And you would think that would be it. It's not. The same pattern again. It dies again, but manages to hold, this time, a higher low. This time it goes to 78. This has already now done 2 capitulations, and you do not even break a support level. Form a double support, and what happens when it breaks the next high? Up to 500. There's a bit of a pattern you're going to be able to see here. And I always caution people for this. You would if you're going to swing on something like this and try to hold for the moon, there's a big difference between being long a 40 break in a stock which started at 13, being long when it took out 80, and trying to grab the 200 long, or trying to take it if it makes a breakout at like 500 or something. And don't get me wrong, this is what happens when it broke 500. The 1,000 break was good too, but those are much more difficult trades psychologically to be able to hold on to. Most people, you're not going to be able to do it. You're just going to see any dollar sign and be able to take it, and it got increasingly illiquid the higher it got. You almost couldn't trade the thing when it was above $1,000.
Yeah, I mean, liquidity obviously is scarce there on HKD. I mean, that went crazy. Was it 32,000% or something up to the high side there? This article only has 14,000, but I'm going to go with Applied DNA Sciences. This is the same article here, if you come to the screen that Brendan had up. But if you scroll down, it says right here, APDN stock versus HKD and AMTD. So I'm going to go with Catalyst as how you kind of navigate through some of these to figure out if you want to become an investor or, just looking for these meme stock squeezes, right? Applied DNA Sciences, they got a validation of its monkeypox, okay? So when that happens, right, it's going to start their PCR test, right? So when that happens, then you say, okay, now there's a reason for something to go through, right? And so here's APDN, and this is often happens with bioscience names, right? I mean, you just, as research happens, they're spending money, then all of a sudden, boom, they get that validation and something they're working on, a company you've never even heard of. I mean, you just take Moderna, for example, right? That was a $5 name, and we saw where that went, right? So all of a sudden, APDN has something that everybody wants, and then it just shoots right up to the upside. So even if we look at a longer chart here of this name, Sure, we've been up here before, $6. You can look at some of these levels, just like Neil just went over technical levels, which is why I'm going over, you know, a little bit of more the macro versus the micro issues pertaining to the company versus outside, right? So it's just like, as that comes through, if these are gonna be the guys and these are gonna be the PCR tests that they're gonna use, then yeah, you could blow up way up to here. So I feel like investing or trading something that has a catalyst when you're comparing it versus these low float names, although APDN doesn't have a huge float, I believe it's only 8 million shares, but you could see 75 million shares done today as it's starting to go to new highs. So not only has this continued, but you can see it's 3 or 4 green bars in a row here on the daily chart. So APDN, again, find names with catalysts, and those might be the ones that you can trust a little bit more than some of these crazy runners that just seem to be going because of short float and or just float in general.
Part about being a short-term trader is that when an event happens like this, it ignites almost this movement that happens throughout the rest of the market, where you get not just 1 or 2 days, guys, worth of trading, but at this point, a week and a half worth of amazing trading and amazing volatility, whether it's a low float gamma type squeeze or just a pure short squeeze. You got to be all over these squeeze names going forward.